Welcome to the Limitless Ladies Network, a women's holistic wellness podcast where our mission is to help women build holistic self-care. The following disclaimer applies to all episodes and content shared on this show. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the host and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views of Limitless Ladies Network or its affiliates. The information and advice provided on this podcast are for general educational purposes only and should not be considered as professional medical, nutritional, or therapeutic advice. The content shared on this podcast is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease or health condition. Listeners are advised to consult with a qualified healthcare professional before making any changes to their diet, lifestyle, or health routine. By listening to this podcast, you acknowledge that you are aware of the limitations and potential risks associated with the information and advice shared on this show. You release and hold harmless Limitless Ladies Network, its hosts, guests, and affiliates from any liability for any damages, losses, or injuries that may result from the use of the information and advice provided on this podcast. Welcome to today's episode. Today's episode is sponsored by Seroptimus International of Willimantic. Seroptimus means the best for women. Seroptimus International's mission is to help women and girls live their dreams. Seroptimus is a global volunteer organization that provides economic access to education and training so that women and young girls can achieve economic empowerment. There are many local and global projects that we contribute, and the two main ones are the Live Your Dream Award, which we have given out to many recipients. That is a cash award that goes to a woman who is seeking to improve her economic situation through education and or training. And the other is the Dream Grant Program, which is funding for licenses and fees that women might need to also continue their education. It's a very worthwhile organization. I'm a member.
I am too.
And so are you, which we're so thrilled to have you on today. So please consider joining our membership, and you can contact us through seroptimuswillimantic.org and learn more about what we do to help women and young girls. So on today's episode, I actually have Sarah Gallardo. I say that correctly?
You did.
Perfect. She's the founder of Sarah Speaks Up and the author of Hiding in Plain Sight. Sarah, it's so great to have you on today.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So tell me a little bit about what Sarah Speaks Up is.
Sarah Speaks Up is pretty much my brainchild that came about organically. I experienced domestic violence in my marriage. And when I was finally able to get away from my abusive ex-husband, I started attending a domestic violence survivor support group through a local DV organization. And I actually attended that support group for 4 years before I became a volunteer, and I went through the process of becoming a certified domestic violence counselor. Once I became a certified DV counselor, I took over the support group that I was attending as the facilitator. And then the organization realized that I have a musical background. I went to Berklee College of Music, for vocal performance. So I'm really comfortable on the stage and in front of an audience. I'm also a writer, so I'm, can memorize poems and perform them at events, which is ultimately what ended up happening. I started speaking, giving just a survivor story at a place like a Rotary Club meeting, cut to the other end of the spectrum, me speaking at the United Nations. So
wow,
all sorts of experiences in between, fundraisers and colleges, schools and medical facilities, to help people understand domestic violence. And really, Sarah Speaks Up wasn't my intention. I think it came about, like I said, organically, because at every turn, someone said, "Oh, that was amazing. Can you speak here? We really need to hear this. And thank you so much. I experienced this." And every time someone asked, could you do this? I just kept saying yes. So really, Sarah speaks up. I just need to name it something,
Right?
and so, and yeah, still going strong.
That's fantastic. Talk about coming full circle. I mean, you started out and then facilitated a group on domestic violence.
Yeah.
That is so inspiring.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Tammy.
It really is because there's many women that I have met through my life, and I'm sure there's going to be more, unfortunately, right, that have various different stories. And we can get caught up in the negativity and the mindset that will just keep us down. So it's really inspiring to know that you can uplift yourself and you can educate other women to, one, kind of step away from those toxic relationships and to just rise above and help others, right?
Yeah, you're making a really great point because I wasn't always, I don't ever want to come across as better than or more than anyone else. And I know that wasn't your implication, but I've been stuck when I completely lost hope. I mean, I've had a nervous breakdown in my lifetime. I've experienced so much trauma that I have complex PTSD, which I navigate daily.
Mm.
And so it is so easy to just go kind of Eeyore, you know. Um, and I've really come to realize that choosing positivity is not this obnoxious sort of, if we're going Winnie the Pooh, then Tigger sort of
Right.
end of the spectrum. But for me, I find things that make me happy every day. My dogs, my cats, my garden, writing, reading, walking, rowing, my friends, my church. Again, it, it's it really does come down to the small stuff and taking control too of what you're ingesting. And if that's food, if that's social media, if that's the radio, you get to choose. You have power and control. So put on a podcast or just a kick butt playlist,
Right.
and you can lift your own spirits in all kinds of different ways.
You totally can. And it's so important that you say, you have a choice because in those situations and in everyday life, sometimes anyone that's dealt with trauma, and we pretty much all on this planet have trauma in some form or another, right? And to be able to just know sometimes that you can make a choice for something
Yeah.
doesn't always seem like it's logical, right? Doesn't seem like I really have that choice.
Yeah.
Well, maybe somebody tells you you really can make that choice. And
Yeah.
sometimes you don't even believe it still.
I mean, too, it's like watching the news, for example, depresses the heck out of me these days. So I stopped. I just stopped listening to the news. I start listening to meditation music,
Mhm.
or I'll stop and get myself a coffee on my way home because that's a little cheer me up. I'll stop and pull over and pick some flowers growing on the side of the road. It doesn't have to cost money.
Right.
You know, it's 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 small every single day. Just choose one thing and then let it be another. Oh, another thing that I've found really helpful is that I actually have a self care protocol. Like, I literally have this in an actual document.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and here's why this is super helpful. I know that for me, if I get down in the dumps, if I'm really depressed, a bubble bath with classical music and candles does it
Mm.
for me. Swimming anywhere does it for me, or being on or near the water at all. Being around
Yes.
animals does it for me. If I bake or cook something, that's wonderful. I have an actual list of stuff that works. And I'm not talking about expensive
Right.
anything. But why this is important is because, first of all, I have to connect enough with myself in order to write this list. And what's also really nice is that I have taught this to the people in my life.
Mm.
So if someone notices, oh, wow, you're down in the dumps, I'm going to draw you a bath. Um, is today a hard day? What can we do? Want to go for a drive or watch a comedy
Yep.
on YouTube? I have to know what it is. And if I know, I can also empower the people in my life to support me.
Right. And to make your day get uplifted and for you just to feel better, right? I mean, that's brilliant. I love the idea of creating your own list of what brings you joy. And I've heard that too from therapists and others, right? Like, what brings you joy? Find the glitters. And it sounds so cliche, right? And everyone's like, yeah, okay. Once you make that shift of finding the positives, then
Hmm.
it really does become easier, but it does take a little time.
Yeah.
But I love the idea of just having a list. Like, yeah, I love to do these things. So let me just whip out some baking things and I'm going to start making some brownies.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Whatever.
That is awesome. So I know on your website, Sarah Speaks Up, which I've checked out, which is very impressive. Love your blog posts and things that you've talked about, various different topics. You talk about self-advocacy and kind of finding your voice. Obviously, Sarah Speaks Up. So what can you share in terms of insights for others to kind of build on those skills?
Well, everyone has their own sort of preset things they're comfortable with. And speaking in front of people is not even what I'm talking about. Like you're talking about self advocacy. For
Mm.
example, if something is going on at home, or if you're feeling emotionally unsafe just in yourself, whatever it is, my best advice is to first say it to one person, one single person, whoever you trust. And it doesn't have to be a partner, it could be a family member, a pastor, a doctor,
Yep.
a friend, anyone who you feel very comfortable communicating with. I mean, it, I remember having trouble verbally saying out loud the words, I was trafficked
Mm.
as a child. And that's the subject of my second book, which I know we'll talk a little bit about. But saying that sentence out loud, my my mouth didn't want to make the words, if that even makes sense, because it's like, okay, well, if I keep it in here,
Right.
then maybe it's not real. Maybe I can pretend still that it just didn't happen. And once you say something out loud, it just becomes more real. And if you say it to another person, it's now witnessed and you
Right.
can't take it back. The reason why that's so valuable is because people tend to feel so lonely. We feel like nobody's going to understand. There's no one to support me. I don't have the love and understanding that I feel that I need in order to move forward. Everyone needs someone and something. We just do.
Mhm. Human.
We're human. Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. And so there's nothing wrong with that. There's no judgment in it. But speaking up first to one person. And then, for example, you tell your mom or your sister, and they're like, okay, well, I'm not fully qualified to help you, but I think that if we were to call the local domestic violence hotline together, I can help you say these things to a person who might have the answers. Now, you're growing your support system, you're speaking your truth, but you also don't feel isolated and you feel that support of someone else. You speak to someone who can help, and maybe it's only the beginning. Maybe that advocate on the phone says, okay, well, this is also bigger than us, but we can advocate for you at the courthouse, or if you call the police,
Mm.
or what have you in this way. So it's important, first of all, to say it out loud to someone you trust. And second of all, keep going until you get what you need, whatever that is. If it's medical, emotional, what have you, legal, keep going. Don't give up on yourself.
That is a great point because, you know, trauma is hard to deal with. And I agree that once you physically say those words out loud, then it is concrete, right? Then it's out there in the world.
Yeah.
And then but as you start telling each person, it can become easier. And then building that support system is just amazing.
Yeah.
It tends to draw those people, I think, to you that you need, even though you don't really know that you need them. They just kind of come out.
That's a great point. That's a really good point. Yeah. And for me, I wouldn't be here. I might not have a book. I might not have Sarah Speaks Up at all if I hadn't said something to one person first and they went down that sort of rabbit hole with me. But again, oh, and another thing, I really would love for people to suspend self-judgment.
Mm.
You know, if you feel emotionally unsafe, if you're depressed, if you can't wake up, if you can't take a shower, if you haven't cooked a meal, and, whatever is going on, you are not the only person who's been through it. And I'm not saying that to be invalidating. I'm saying that to tell you you're not alone.
Yeah, we all have to show ourselves some grace, even on some of the smallest things that we have to deal with on a daily basis, right? Because that negative self-talk
Mhm.
will just bring you down a really bad rabbit hole that can sometimes be really hard to claw yourself back up to your baseline, right?
I actually have this saying I tell people, don't pick up where your abuser left off.
Mm.
So if your abuser was someone who was speaking all this negativity towards you or about you, don't take their job once they're gone. It's not your job to beat up on yourself. It's your job to love yourself in all your flaws and all your glory and all your mess, because you're human and you deserve that.
Totally. Totally agree. So as you navigated through this process, what are some of the challenges that you faced in your own journey?
Oh, well, um, you know, I have complex PTSD. I mentioned that a little earlier. Oh gosh, here's something that's so difficult about it is that it's invisible. So it's not like I walk around with a broken arm or a broken leg and I'm on crutches and people are like, oh, she needs help. I'll hold the door for her. These invisible ailments, whatever they are, it's very hard to um, deal with anyone else. And so sometimes people in my position are sort of shut in. They don't interact with as many people. They don't go places as frequently as they might like to, because they can control their small space. A big part of complex PTSD is triggers. And once you go out the door, you have no control over the weather or who approaches you, what they might say, a song, a smell, what have you. So I had to get very good at recognizing if I'm in a triggered state of mind and I'm out in the world, how can I navigate that to the best of my ability? Sometimes it's breathing exercises. Sometimes it's grounding exercises. Say one thing you can see, two things you can smell, or however, you know,
Right.
that order goes for people. And while doing this work that is also triggering, so listening to other people's stories, telling my own story, writing my own story, I'm essentially signing up to trigger myself.
Right. Yes.
And
Imagine that that causes a lot of distress, like ebbs and flows throughout the day, because you need to have that creativity part to be able to write what you want to get out that's been inside for so long. But yet at the same time, I'm sure that you're just going through this emotional roller coaster, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And for those times, I mean, like I said, I did have a nervous breakdown. I had a nervous breakdown as I was receiving the Hartford Business Journal 40 Under 40 award. And no, the public doesn't know. They didn't know. No one, they couldn't tell. I went to receive my award and I gave a speech, and people didn't know that I had, well, weeks ago had an actual nervous breakdown. You know, that is a tough, tough thing. And you've got to compartmentalize really well. So to almost, and I think for this, my performance self was a really strong piece that I was able to draw from and say, okay, the show must go on.
Right.
And if anyone ever took dance class or anything like that, it's like, once you're going to the recital, if you drop a shoe, you keep dancing.
Hmm.
And so it's in that same vein, having your personal having your personal story out there while the story keeps happening, right? Because my life is the story and my life keeps happening.
Right.
And
It's
so
unfolding every day, right?
the abuser still affects my life.
Mm.
At the time, my father was the biggest culprit of them all. He had stolen money. I was losing my home because of it. A whole bunch of stuff that behind the scenes was heartbreaking, really heartbreaking. Um, I think then if I were to label it, the biggest challenge is to remind myself that this work is valuable. And I'll be honest, there was a time, um, I call it my mentee B, right? For short, my mentee B. Uh, there was a time after that where I really wondered. I was like, should I just let sleeping dogs lie? And the work that I've done is enough in the world. Should I just get some corporate job or do some other thing and let this stuff go? And I'm not kidding. If you believe in a higher power or the power of the universe or whatever it is, every time I let it sit, I was always receiving a message: don't stop.
Really?
Yeah, don't stop. A person would reach out to me, for help, or I would be asked to speak at another place. And, things that I didn't set out to get or find, were finding me. So almost as a way to say, no, we still need you to do what you're doing. Take your time. And that's another thing. There's no timeline to this. And so, whatever feeling of urgency I may have had was only what I perceived. And whoever receives a message, uh, that has to be enough for me, because I am also only human.
Right. And I applaud you for putting yourself out there and being vulnerable so that other women and anyone really that has suffered from domestic violence or any traumas, right? You're doing great work. So I really applaud you, and my heart goes out to you as you're working through a book that is like digging really deep inside. Because I'm sure, like I said, it's got to be a roller coaster. So thank you.
Thank you.
So on that note, what would you actually give for advice to someone that might be going through the beginning stages? I know we talked a little bit about it of their self-advocacy journey.
I think it's really important to make sure that you have a strong support system while you're moving forward in any kind of vulnerable way. It's almost like, I love analogies, but if it's almost like a turtle walking around without their shell. I've never seen a turtle without a shell. I don't even know if I want to.
Right.
I'm so glad that they have it, right? Your support system is your shell. And if you need to pull back into that, those are the people who surround you and keep you safe. Those are the ones who are going to say, you know what? I really don't want you to go to that appointment by yourself. Would you mind? Is it okay if I come with you? You don't have to make that phone call alone. I'll come over and I'll just hold your hand. I'll make you a cup of tea. We'll sit together. Having a strong support system is absolutely integral to doing any kind of hard emotional work. And not everybody has a supportive family. So sometimes you'll have to find close friends or a support group, which you can get just by Googling. And again, it's not just domestic violence. It's like cancer survivors or parents of autistic children, or, the list goes on and on. There's a group for everyone. And building your support system is really so important.
I totally agree. It's good to have your advocates for you in your corner, right?
Mhm.
And picking and choosing those people and knowing if it's toxic versus non-toxic, right? If
Yeah.
my advice is, if you get a gut feeling about somebody and
Oh,
you get that sense that something is not right. And no matter what situation it is or making a choice in life, right? That we really need to listen to that gut because it's our second brain, but really almost our first brain because it almost reacts faster than us mentally thinking through the process of things or why are we feeling this way about that person, right? It's
yeah. No, that's your intuition. And
yes.
I realized too that in my abusive marriage, one of the things that he sort of uh, tried to cause in me is for me to second guess my instincts so that I almost had no idea who I was at the end of things. And because if I did listen to my instincts and I actually reacted when my body felt fearful, because that's a real human reaction that indicates you're in danger, and then I did run, he would be losing his control over me. So by tapping back into that internal instinct, you're trusting yourself and you're also sending a silent message to your own brain or psyche that says, I trust you. I believe you. I believe me, right?
Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah. So you mentioned that you're doing a new book. You kind of alluded to it a little bit here and there. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about that if you can?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This is possibly a no. This is certainly a more difficult truth to tell. I think largely because I'm already affiliated with being a domestic violence survivor. So people know me as a woman who has experienced abuse in my marriage in a romantic relationship. So now coming out as, on top of that, a human trafficking survivor um, is, I don't know if it's overkill in people's opinion. And again, I'm not, it's neither here nor there, people's opinions about it, but it was through my therapeutic process, which is I have to be in therapy, that I realized where my trauma originated. Now that's the root. That's the root of this, is that if I learned toxic relationship dynamics as a child, then it makes so much more sense that I would originally sort of accept those in my romantic relationships and, leading to my abusive marriage. This isn't the case for everyone, you know, and I think that's something else that's important to talk about is every single individual's experience is uniquely theirs, although we are part of a larger conglomerate. For me, saying out loud, my father groomed me, molested me, raped me, and sold me for sex to other men. That was a hard one. That was a hard one. I think it's also hard to hear. It's hard to say. Um,
It is because it's like the worst betrayal, right? I mean, when it's your own family member, and I've done a podcast with Susan who deals with the human trafficking here in Connecticut, and the statistics are just staggering that it is mostly with someone that you know, but more with your own family, right? So how can anyone really fathom that someone that is supposed to be loving you in such a caring and gentle way would do something as heinous, right, as that? Because
yeah. And
it's
and
just,
it's interesting the unspoken message that that kind of experience would send,
Mhm.
especially to a child. What I assumed is that I wasn't worthy of love and protection. I thought that I was dirty and faulty and damaged and that I deserved it, or that but I didn't get to say no, that no was never an option.
right.
And then moving forward, if that's what you believe, regardless of what you see on posters in school or billboards on the side of the road, I immediately think those messages aren't for me. You don't know my lived experience. My own father did this. So, and two, as a young girl, I can speak specifically to that experience. The one person in the world who you think is supposed to keep you safe is your dad, right? Your mom, yes, also. And I'm a only parent. I'm a single mom. So, I mean, my kid knows, call me. I'm there, and nobody wants to deal with that, right? I will
Right.
throw that. I don't care. That's my kid. But to not grow up with that knowledge of I am backed by adults who won't allow this to happen. My message was the opposite. I am backed by people who make this happen to me.
Mm.
And so finding safety has been a really huge theme throughout my entire life. Finding safety for myself, creating safety for my child, and then maintaining safety. And that doesn't mean only physical, that also means emotional
Mm.
safety. So if you're in a perfectly safe neighborhood in a house with all locks and such, but inside the house is a person who's screaming at you and blaming you for everything, that's not safe either, you know? And being being trafficked now, I can say that out loud now. At the time, I realized that the men, they were all men, the perpetrators, were, I think, trying to make me feel like I was, um, maybe the word they would use is like a slut, or that I am easy and that it was my idea and that it was my sort of, I brought this on myself kind of a
Right.
situation.
They were blaming the victim, right?
Oh,
Just to
absolutely.
keep you so that you were subservient and didn't really question what it was that they were doing, right? They put that onus on you,
Yeah,
not on themselves.
right, right, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's easy even to look back and just think, oh, that was my fault. I didn't do this, I did do that, or what have you. But the truth is, it wasn't my fault.
It was not your fault
No,
at all. Totally not your fault.
no, no.
You are a very brave woman.
Thank you.
It is not an easy topic to talk about. And so I really am grateful that you're sharing your story with us because it needs to be heard by just so many people that hopefully they can come out of any bad situation and find that support system that they need. make that phone call. Just say the words out loud so that then they can feel safe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Thank you.
It's what I'm here for.
You're here for a lot more than your story, that's for sure.
Thank you. I'm also here to bake and garden and pet all of my animals.
Yes. So thank you so much for speaking up once again. And where can our listeners find you and get your book?
Well, my current book, Hiding in Plain Sight, is available on Amazon. So, Hiding in Plain Sight, A Glimpse into the Reality of Domestic Violence by Sarah Gallardo. My website right now is down because I'm rebuilding a new website.
Okay.
So if anyone had any questions, comments, or concerns, if you need help, if you need guidance, anything I can do, please email me at sarahspeaksup@gmail.com. And that's Sarah with an H, all lowercase. If you needed to get in direct contact with me and you know someone or you know Tammy, just let her know. She'll let me know. We will get that sorted. I do hope that my second book will be out in 2025. But if that's not the way it goes, because I have a GoFundMe page right now, the publishing package
Mm.
is something that I have to pay for, obviously. So hopefully it will be end of 2025, if not beginning of 2026.
Awesome. And what is your GoFundMe page?
GoFundMe, you could go on the site
And
GoFundMe,
just
or
find your name.
yeah, you can find my name, Sarah Gallardo, or on my Facebook page. It's pinned to the top of my page, or I can send you the link, Tammy,
Perfect.
if you wanted to put it somewhere.
Yeah, send it to me and I'll put it in the show notes.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
Absolutely. So thank you once again for joining us. And I want to thank Seroptimus International of Willimantic. And if there are any of you out there that are looking to join a women-based organization that helps women and young girls, we also work very closely with the Domestic Violence Center here in town and also the Sexual Assault Crisis Center. So please reach out to seroptimuswillimantic.org and check us out there. And please follow Limitless Ladies Network on Facebook and LinkedIn, our YouTube channel, of course, and our podcast. Thank
Yes,
you.
ma'am. One more thing I wanted to add, if anyone wondered, Seroptimist International of any Connecticut club or just in general is a huge part of my support system, which I talked about earlier. So we would love to have you as a member. If you're thinking about it, go to all the places Tammy mentioned, but I highly recommend it.
And you were actually a Live Your Dream Award winner, weren't you?
I was a Live Your Dream Award winner, and I was also Seroptimist president, and I gave the Live Your Dream Award to people.
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it, Tammy.